Can wicked rulers be allied with you, those who frame injustice by statute? Reject and defy Roe versus Wade. It is not law. It is evil. It is murder. It is an iniquitous decree. They band together against the life of the righteous and condemn the innocent to death.
Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Proclaim Liberty podcast, a production of the Proclaim Liberty Initiative. We will be discussing public policy issues and other issues important to the church from a biblical worldview. I am Tim Gillespie, pastor of Liberty Church in Stroud, Oklahoma. To my left is Pastor Kelly Green of Hope Church in Shawnee, and to my right is Pastor Sam Ketcher of Hilltop Free Will Baptist Church in Wewoka. How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
Pretty good, Tim.
All right.
Good to be here.
What are we talking about tonight, Tim?
That's all I had so far.
You're the host.
Like I said, it's the inaugural edition, so
first ever, groundbreaking, history in the making.
Earth shaking.
It's going to go viral.
Tonight, actually, I think we're just going to kind of share our testimonies about how we came to abolitionism. Future podcasts, we're going to deal with probably abolition on a every time we record, but I think we'll deal with some other issues, progressivism and humanism and some of those issues, and so we'll get to some other things later on, but I think tonight we're going to focus on abolitionism and why we are abolitionists.
Sounds good.
Sound like a good idea?
Let's do it.
Well, who wants to tell how you became an abolitionist?
I think Sammy the Bull ought to go first.
Sammy the Bull.
Oh, my goodness, of course. Pick on the younger guy. Well, how I became an abolitionist. Let's see here. I guess we need to go back to the beginning. I spoke a little bit about it at the Free the States podcast.
Yeah.
But kind of to make a long story short, got saved at an early age, but then also at an early age, I always felt like God wanted me to do something.
You are going back to the beginning, aren't you?
I am. When I was a young warthog.
On a winter day, I was born.
And the Word became flesh.
Oh, don't make me
Going
pass
way back
out.
there.
But anyways, I always felt like the Lord had something he wanted me to do. Of course, I surrendered to preach, but I always had this very strong desire to take a stand for things that I knew were right and stand against things I knew were wrong. And abortion hit the radar for me back when I started hearing about it on the news and hearing people talking about it, in the late 80s, early 90s, the women's, I know women's right, the women's lib, the feminism started rising up even before that, but it really started, getting my attention. And abortion is the big, big thing. If you try to touch abortion somehow, you're trying to oppress women, take away their rights, put them back in caves. That's their trigger that they're the trigger that they're using.
I hadn't heard that one yet.
It just came out. But anyways, that's not the case, and it's sad that that they're using babies as human shields now to further their socialist, their progressive agendas, and that's what they're doing.
Well, it's not even veiled anymore. It's not about, choice anymore. It's about
do as we say or we will destroy you.
Yeah, and a disdain for life.
Right. And if you don't agree with murdering babies, we will destroy you. We will burn your homes. We will make sure you never work again. That's the way where we're heading right now. But as a teenager, like I said, it got on the radar, and it just didn't make sense to me. What is the need to murder a baby? Why? And
did you know anybody who had an abortion at that time?
Everything I was seeing was what was on the news. And I remember my grandma would always watch Channel 6 News out of Tulsa. And Clayton Vaughn, he had a segment where you can write in and ask questions or like a letter to the editor. And here I was, a young teenager, and I wrote in and I just said, I've been hearing all this talk about abortion. And I said, if you don't want a baby, why don't you just use protection? Sounds pretty simple to me. And I remember Clayton Vaughn, this gray-haired man, repeating my words. And then my mom panicking, thinking my grandma's Sunday school class was going to hear that. But to me, it just like, choices have consequences. And we live in a country now where we say your choices don't have consequences. Do what you want. And we'll flush your problems down the toilet. That's basically what we're saying. Yeah. And I started learning more and more, hearing more and more. And the more you hear, to a reasonable person, someone who has a head on their shoulders and actually has a heart, when they hear about abortion and what it is, they're going to say that is wrong. Yeah. And me as a kid, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, I have Forrest Gumped my way through life, what I tell my kids. But even as a kid, I realized you don't murder babies. And so I started listening. There was a late-night talk show host that would come on named Bob Binyart, very conservative, and he would debate pro-choice people on the air, and he would rip them to shreds. And he would go into details just about abortion, explaining, the procedures and even not only talking about the theological aspect of it, but also the philosophical aspects of it too.
We are live.
Yeah. We can't edit that
Actually,
out.
we're not live. We're just not going to do any editing.
Yes. I get tongue-tied. My church hears it all the time.
Especially when it's Sam's mess up.
Yes.
We're going to
you
leave
can
that
keep
in.
mine in there. That's fine. But he really began to just strengthen that conviction. And as I got older, before me and my wife got married.
About what year was this?
That was high school years. Whenever
pretty early to become so
was.
aware on those types of issues.
I mean, I was senior in high school. I had my systematic theology book on my desk. I'd be reading that in class. I remember a girl leaned back. I still remember her name, but I won't say her name to spare her. But she's like, "What you reading there?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is a book on systematic theology by Charles Ryrie." And it's boom. Yeah, no one really wanted to date me in high school.
You were Southern Baptist, clearly.
Yes. That was before I became Free Will Baptist. But
did you have your Ryrie study Bible?
I sure did, and I still do. But so that was basically, I had just scratched the surface. I was what you would call pro-life, and I had no idea the compromising and the falsehoods of the pro-life movement. I had no idea what they were doing. You just see them on TV. Oh, they're family, oriented, and they're fighting for the unborn, and they're out holding up signs and marching in D.C. and thinking that's all we need to do.
Well, for years and years, there was never a competing message.
No.
Either, and so unless you sat down and just really started thinking critically,
right,
that was just what you did.
Yeah.
Well, and really, even in my knowledge back then, no one really, the churches really that I knew were even saying anything about abortion. So everything what I was getting was from TV.
Oh yeah,
and if I had
that is a horrible indictment.
It is
that even back then that there's never been a drive to deal with this issue.
Right.
You didn't get your once a year abortion sermon?
Nope.
Sanctity of Life.
You didn't
Sunday,
get at least your once a year.
No. As a matter of fact, one of the first churches I ever pastored, I had a petition in the back, and it was a pro-life petition in the back, and I was trying to I wanted everybody in the church to sign it so we could send it to the state leaders, and I couldn't get no one to sign it. I ain't going to say, but anyways, I got mad from the pulpit. I got mad from the pulpit, and I got pretty heated, and I said, you know what, I can't even get you all to even sign a petition
It's
to
beyond
save the
them.
lives of unborn. But you know what? After that, people went and signed it. And I think it is an indictment.
They had to know that it was important to you.
Right.
Message to the pastors out there.
Right. They got to hear it from the pulpits first.
Yeah.
So I never heard this type of stuff from the pulpit. But as I got older, you start hearing more and more, and now it's a big-time hot topic issue. But I've always been, I always consider myself pro-life. And it's strange because now I can't even cannot even utter those words, I'm pro-life. Yeah. It's such a compromise, and it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Knowing that politicians that are saying they're pro-life, but yet still vote to allow babies to be murdered. But and that was my journey in pro-lifism. It really had not elevated past just me being vocal in my circle or even in my head, processing it all until,
Now, through all of this, were you ever around other people who were like-minded, or were you always kind of taking the lead on this?
I'm pretty sure I was always kind of I was the hardcore know-it-all.
Mm-hmm.
It
just mattered more to you.
Yeah. But, my family, they're all pro-life. We all were very staunch, still are pro-life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I started, watching these wild guys on Facebook, free the states, these rebels. And I believe I even saw, something on the news about them too. And I started following them and Abolish Human Abortion, those signs, and I mentioned this on their podcast, those signs got my attention.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's one thing to know abortion is murder. It's another thing to have your nose rubbed in it.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that's earlier when Kelly asked you that question a minute ago, I was thinking really that's the story for most abolitionists. We might have been the vocal one, but there weren't that many vocal ones because the pro-life movement has done a masterful job of protecting themselves by getting the church to cede that issue to them.
Right.
You're pro-life, but that's great. You go to church every Sunday. We'll go to the Capitol.
Send us your money.
Yeah, send us your money. And
you guys do the voting and the sending
right,
of the money.
Right. You vote like we tell you to vote. Mm-hmm. We've seen that with Tony Lounger in Oklahoma over the last few years. Right. But yeah, you guys go vote. You do what we're telling you to do. Otherwise, you just sit back. Don't worry about it. We got this.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that is waking people up to abolitionism is when they realize whether somebody is telling them this or whether it just kind of comes, a light bulb goes off.
Yeah. Right.
Wait a minute. This is not. We're not getting it. We're spinning our wheels. We're no closer to anything.
Right.
With this, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, and really the pro-life movement, those pro-life leaders rely on pro-life people being really ignorant on the subject. They don't want people to know anything. They don't want anybody to look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Because the moment you start actually looking at Scripture and then looking how they want you to vote, nowhere in Scripture did God tell the midwives, save some.
Right.
Nowhere.
Well, they also don't want you looking into things like nullification and states' rights. Right. I mean, when you get down to it, whether you're talking about it from a scriptural viewpoint or from a political and historical and civics viewpoint, our country is set up on states' rights. And so the biblical and the political are actually in line on this when you start looking at what it's going to take to fix this. And it's not just sitting back in the pew. It's the state standing up and it's the people standing up and telling SCOTUS, you're not our king.
Right.
You're not the rulers. We're the rulers. You're representatives.
Right.
And so,
Well, and for those people that are listening to the propaganda and the lies of the pro-life politicians, especially here in Oklahoma.
Oh, they got it down to a science here.
Oh, yeah.
Man, they do.
And they say, well, we can't do nullification. We can't do this. We can't defy the federal government. We can't defy SCOTUS. The next time you drive down a main street in Oklahoma and you see your main street lined with marijuana shops, think about this. Oklahoma politicians defied and are still defying the federal government.
It's not just that. Our state legislature this session has passed 2 different nullification measures dealing with Second Amendment issues.
Right.
They have passed a nullification bill that deals with voting. The voting systems are a purview of the states, not the federal government. So they're all for nullifying the federal government when it suits them.
Right.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't, and with pot especially, you're talking about a revenue stream there. They like that tax money that's been coming in off that. And so when you do drive, I live in Stroud. There's at least 3 dispensaries in Stroud.
Yeah.
Stroud.
That's nothing, guys.
Tiny.
When you go into Midwest City, you can't. I could throw a pitchfork down the road and hit one for sure.
Well, and those are bringing in cash, hard cash, and especially the groweries, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And they bring in cash. And so there's an
Yep.
exception.
Yep.
So you find out what people can really do by what will bring in the cash.
Yeah.
Which proves, they can do nullification.
Yeah.
They don't want to do nullification because there's no incentive for them.
Actually, there's incentive for them not to do it, and that is because they've got the average pro-life person on the hook, sitting in their church pew, sending in their money, casting their vote, and not questioning anything else beyond that.
Yeah.
So why would they? They'd be giving up campaign donations. In Oklahoma, it's guns and babies, guys. They'd be giving up one of their 2 top campaign issues in Oklahoma.
Right. Because everybody knows economics is boring to people.
Yeah.
You know?
Not to my wife. It is to me.
Not to everybody. But they got to have those triggers.
Yeah.
And for us in the Bible Belt, it's guns and babies. But that's who started getting my attention. It was
What did you think of Free the States first time you heard them? Saw them?
At first, it was a shock, and I was. It took me a while. I was studying them, but it was new, and I tend to be kind of John the Baptist anyway. The voice crying in the wilderness. I'm like, these guys are different. They're singing my tune, but
right. It was appealing to that side.
Yeah, but at the same time, okay, I got to make sure here.
Right.
And started watching more of them, and the more I listened, the more it started making sense. But and it's almost like peeling back an onion. I knew what I was hearing, I was agreeing with, but it hadn't got to that deep down conviction yet. And even when I met with James Silberman, when he came to my church, and we joked about this in the podcast, when he asked me what does when in regards to abortion, how does it relate to the gospel? And I froze. I hadn't thought that far ahead yet.
Yeah.
But now I know. I mean, abortion is a sin that needs to be repented of just like everything else. Yeah. And as I said before, that abortion is the only sin in America that pastors are afraid to even address. And so if there are people in our churches that are committing abortion and murdering their babies and we're silent, it's a gospel issue. We're telling them, well, the gospel says to repent, but you don't have to repent of that sin. You don't have to repent of your murder.
What do you think they are so hesitant to talk about it?
Well, the number one reason is we are masquerading what we think is prudence, I guess, is cowardice.
I think that really our society, abortion has become culturally acceptable even to Christians. We just don't want to admit it.
Right.
It's like shacking up.
Yep, it's true.
Exactly. That's where
it's just connected to it.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a lot of political quote issues.
Well, I thought I turned my phone on silent.
That's quite the holy sounding ringer you have there.
This is the doxology on my phone.
You know you can trust guys who have doxology on their phone, right?
Sorry, brother, I'll have to call you back. I'll turn this on silent. I'm going to tell him, too, you were on the podcast.
Yeah, he's famous now.
Well, I think, though, we're also seeing the same problem with a lot of the politically correct issues. Social justice.
Yeah.
Critical race theory and some of those things that you're seeing. The reason that is becoming an issue is because there are too many churches and too many pulpits where if it is going to ruffle a feather,
right,
we're not going to touch it.
Right.
And abortion is probably the oldest of all of those issues.
Yeah.
And it was kind of probably one of the first ones that the church started backing away from. And if you're not willing to preach the sanctity of life in a church, are you going to preach anything else of importance?
Right. If you cave on abortion, you're going to cave on
That's
homosexuality.
Yeah.
You're going to cave on anything.
Yeah.
Abortion should be a no-brainer. That should be the easiest fight that we have to fight. Because even the early church, I mean, Rome, when you think about Rome, was pro-choice.
Yeah.
They had no problems killing their babies, unborn or
born. Yeah.
Yeah, born.
And the church, if you study the early church fathers, you find out they really hated abortion big time. I mean, I remember one time reading where one of the churches would make, and I'm not saying this is right, but this is the mindset that they had, was that they would make a woman who had an abortion, she had to repent, but she also, I believe, wasn't fully accepted back into the fellowship for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
She was kind of on the outskirts a little bit,
Right.
proving her repentance for a decade.
Right.
Now, I don't want to do that.
Right.
But that lets you know what the early
How
church
serious.
actually thought about abortion.
That's how serious they thought about murder.
So you saw Free the States, you saw this, Abolish Human Abortion, and how did you get from that to where you are now?
Well, I started hanging out with a couple other Free Will Baptist guys that were kind of in the same boat that I was, Tim Gillespie and Kelly Green.
How'd that come about?
From
your perspective.
From my perspective, they sought me out. No, I'm just joking. I was, we were in between churches, and of course, I knew Tim for a while. I'd have him come and preach at my church, and he never had me come preach at his church, but I'd always have him
just show up.
Man of what wisdom.
But, and then I know that I'm
dangerous.
Yes, I am dangerous. But I knew he was part of, the OK2A, and, but I don't think we had.
I don't think we'd ever really talked about it.
No, we just focused on, the guy.
Did you know that he was abolitionist? Okay.
I think, we'd probably have talked about abortion just in a general sense sometime, at some point. But
and then we were looking for some churches to go to while we were in between
So you
churches.
weren't pastoring at the time? You were in between?
I think I was.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And it was either that or, let me think here. Yeah. And so I was like, well, look at some churches in Shawnee area.
Okay.
And I was searching for Free Will Baptist churches in Shawnee, and so I found, Hope Church. There's Kelly Green on there. And so I started listening. I was like, I kind of like this guy.
I appealed to that darker side.
Yes. You didn't have to offer me cookies either. Would have been nice.
That would have been good.
But I started listening to you, and then...
So you were meant to come over to my church and really just stay with me.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sorry.
You got off track, but there's still time.
Talk to my church now, see if you can work out a deal. But so, and I think I may have messaged you. No, I think how it was maybe we were seeing things on the same page, or maybe it was the same time of the. Do you remember?
I think that me and you somehow bonded over the fact that we were both historic pre-mill.
Yes, that is exactly it.
I think that was it. And I think that's when I knew that you were a holy, righteous individual.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, kind sir.
For those of you who don't know, in this area, the Free Will Baptists are predominantly all millennial. And so when you find someone who is, in my case, a historic pre-mill, you're like really, hang on to them tight and don't let them go.
AKA post-trib.
Yeah. Well, so this picture doesn't sound like it can be complete unless we understand Tim's story.
Right.
Because somehow both of us discovered Tim. Now, what's important is that I still don't know the full story about how you became an abolitionist, but Tim Gillespie, he authored the Free Will Baptist Resolution, which is basically an abolitionist resolution. And I didn't even know who he was at the time, so really we need to find out how in the world you one day sat down and wrote a resolution. I still don't know that story.
Tim Gillespie, this is your life.
Well, I have been asked about, how as a pastor I became so politically active. Mm-hmm. And I've had people question whether or not I put politics before church. Mm-hmm. And I do not. I never have, because to me, public policy, I don't care what issue you're talking about, whether it is abortion or whether it is same-sex marriage or any of those kinds of issues. Economics, the Second Amendment, all of it comes from Scripture. The Scripture is our guide that God has given us to be able to live in this world and operate and so forth. And which part of it, too, is I was involved in politics before I became a preacher. Mm-hmm. I had served in party offices. I served on the county election board. And through all of that time, probably about a decade, I was starting to get more and more aggravated at both parties. Because, and I don't care, Republican, Democrat, I don't care what party you are, if the Libertarian Party became a majority party, they would have the same problem.
Right.
Because riffraff goes towards power.
Right.
Whoever's in power. And I was getting tired of being in a situation where you had people that were, especially as a party chairman, a county party chairman, if I had somebody that was in an office and I could not really take them to task because I was the chairman of the party. Yeah. And so I started kind of migrating away from party politics and into issue groups. Spent a little time with Freedom Works as their state coordinator in Oklahoma, back when Dick Armey was with them, and they weren't making a big deal over liquor laws in Texas like they are now. I don't know what the deal is with that. But anyway, got involved in some pro-life ministry and some pro-life politics. Actually spent some time for our state Free Will Baptist Executive Board, going around talking about the lottery and the gambling compact, and eventually the informed consent bill. Did that for a while, and then I ended up, I founded OK2A, Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. Stepped away from that a couple of years ago because this was starting to draw me back. There were other reasons too, but this was part of it. And so, that brings us up to that point. I've always been very involved in politics and believe that Christians should be very involved in politics. The reason why we have people that think Christians should leave their faith in the church building when they go outside is because that's what we've done. Right. This is not something where there is an undue expectation being put on us from outside.
Right.
We created the undue expectation for the outside by doing what it is we do, and that's nothing when it comes to these important issues. And that is really what the pro-life movement's strategy is. It's based on an incremental approach that can never reach the end zone because they say you can't nullify. Well, if you don't nullify, you're never going to pass a bill that is going to maybe make it to the courts and allow for Roe to be overturned. And so we sit back and we say, hoorah, hoorah for the Republicans. Let's elect more Republicans. Well, how many Republicans have put people on the Supreme Court that turned around and ended up not being what we were? We've been sold a bill of goods about these people, and they end up being a disappointment almost every time. Right. Never mind the fact that it was a Republican Supreme Court that gave us Roe and that gave us Casey. Right. So a more Republican Supreme Court is just going to do more of the same. And I kind of went through that litany of things just to kind of I'm going to kind of back up a second on a couple of points. Randy Brogdon was very active in Dan Fisher's gubernatorial campaign, and Dan was the first politician really to make that their platform. Yeah, major part of their platform. Well, Randy, when he was a state senator, I had worked with him some while I was doing the Freedom Works stuff, and then also on the informed consent bill and a couple other pro-life bills, and respected him a great deal. And when Dan ran for office, Randy had set up Free the States, or was involved in setting it up, and eventually turned it over to Russell, or Russell was part. I really don't know how that worked, but
we'll get an email of clarification after this podcast.
Yes, Russell, I'm sure give me a call and straighten me out on that. But anyway, Randy was very active in Dan's campaign, and I had went to an event where he was speaking and talking about his conversion, I guess, if you will, to abolitionism. It was like that. I was like, okay.
Had you heard of it before?
No. I had not by name. Yeah. I mean, I was one of those pro-life people that I actually expected the pro-life movement to go do something to actually try to stop abortion.
Yeah. It's a good thing you discovered abolitionism.
Yeah. And so, as soon as I heard him, I was like, okay, where do I sign up? There wasn't any conversion time when it comes to.
Just by the time it was over, it made sense. You were like on board.
Now the conversion time, and I think this is the thing that is going to take anybody a little bit of time once they finally do kind of come to that point where they're like, I think the way Russell or James I was putting it on one of their podcast episodes was it's like 80 or 90%. You get to that 80 or 90% point, but it's that last 10, 20% that takes a little bit, because that last 10 or 20% is going from, okay, I want abolition, and this is a great abolition bill, but they killed it. So, but these pro-life bills at least do something. So let's go ahead and support those. That last 10% where you get to the point where it's like, no, because they're using this as an excuse to kill that. Yeah. Right. So no to this. No to the pro-life bills. No to the heartbeat bills. No to these. Pass an abolition bill. Right. Abolish abortion now without compromise. Right. That took me about a legislative session. Yeah. And then,
did you even realize that for the pro-life movement, it's not even on the table to actually really say our goal right now is to stop abortion, make it illegal?
Well, it's with any movement, if it takes it too long to accomplish its goal, it no longer when you get into the second and especially into the third generation, it is no longer about accomplishing the goal. It's about maintaining the organization. And that's what
half a century.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in America, we're used to endless wars. Yeah. And so we're program conditioned. This is the war in regards to abortion is going to keep on going. War. Yeah. It's just going to be in the norm.
Yep. Yeah. But anyway, that it didn't take me quite a full legislative session.
So you're a little bit hybrid for a little bit.
For about well, let's see what the state meeting's in late April, right? So it was the session started in February. I watched how at that point I was like, okay, go ahead and support the pro-life bills. But then I got, and I don't know why this was a shock to me, because I have spent, close to 20 years dealing with the legislature in some form or fashion. I know how crooked they can be.
Right.
I know that at any given time in our state legislature, and I don't care, Republican, Democrat, you've got maybe 10, 15 people up there that actually have a principle in their body. Yeah.
It's the same thing Joseph Silk says.
It's horrible. And when you talk about people like Greg Treat, I sat in a meeting with Greg Treat, probably 15-ish years ago, where he was ready. He was working for Tom Coburn at the time when Dr. Coburn was in the Senate.
Yeah.
And he was ready to go get Senator Coburn to go public and take Tony Lounger to task because he killed any bill that was a pro-life bill that wasn't his. Right. Because it's all about Right to Life Committee, not about actually doing something.
What happened to him?
Exactly. He got into a position.
He got into power.
And I think he wants a higher position of power. And so he plays the political game. Yeah. He's sold out as far as I'm concerned. He's just another crooked politician. Yeah. And I'm sure in his, with most of these people, some of them are crooked to the point they know they're crooked and they are crooked. Right. There are some that have managed to talk themselves into believing their own line. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one of those Greg Treat is, but he's one.
Well, it doesn't matter because I know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the politician, I forget who he is, the Republican politician that proposed the heartbeat bill when he, in fact, owns ultrasound businesses.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
So, heartbeat bill, who benefits from that?
You own ultrasound businesses.
You can't abolish abortion because you got to have the ultrasound bills.
Yep. Well, anyway, so I like I said, I don't know why that surprised me one bit. I've dealt with them long enough that I know how they are, but I started to get angry. Mm-hmm. So February 2019,
the day that will live in infamy.
The session starts. They are playing their tricks, and April comes around, and by this point I'm getting a little bit aggravated. And a little bit more time goes by in April, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I thought to myself, we've got to do something to try to get this message out and to try to get
So who are you conversing with about this? I mean, because obviously you're on the verge of writing that resolution, and you're just alone on this issue?
I mean, I had reached out to Randy at one point, to see if there was anything I could do to help, and he told me to, that Russell had was leading it, and so I think I reached out to Russell. I talked to Russell maybe once or twice. Yeah, he probably doesn't remember that because it was early on, and I was just some guy that happened to, I don't think I even really ever introduced myself to him.
Tim who?
Yeah. But, and I actually sent, I don't think I told him this in their podcast episode that I did, but I actually sent him a message and asked him if they had any like model language for a resolution, and I never heard anything back from him. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll just, start from scratch. Russell.
That one.
Yeah, Russell. Hey.
You could have had a stake in this.
But actually, it's probably the best because
wrong side of history. Free Will Baptist history. You could have been a part of it.
Because it made me do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if I had been given model language, I would have looked at it and I would have said, okay, change this. And then, but it made me more invested in it probably that I did it. Which I will tell you, there are a couple of spots in there where I borrowed language from other things, doing some research. But it made me more invested in it. I called Mike. Mike said, "Sure, send it to me." I sent it to Mike. He sent it over to the resolutions guys. I called him back a few days later, and he said they liked it. They took one little piece of a line out, and it'll be going to the state meeting.
And when he says Mike, it's
Mike
our
Wade.
associational director, Mike Wade.
Good, great guy.
State
Been
Free Will
very
Baptist.
supportive, on board from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, Mike's,
Amen.
that's right. But so that's how the resolution. I as soon as we sat down and started this, I thought I should have brought a copy of that resolution. But
It may or may not end up in the comments.
yeah.
Depends on if we remember to do that.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's how the resolution came about. And then what was it probably?
Now, why is this resolution a big deal, though?
Well, resolutions by themselves don't do anything.
Right, doesn't do nothing.
I mean,
But what was unique? I mean,
really,
resolutions are passed all the time.
honestly, the reason why I did it was because I wanted to be able to, because I'd already decided at that point, okay, I'm going to annoy some Free Will Baptist pastors about this.
Okay, that's always good motivation.
Yes. And
Poke.
actually, it's more, it's like the Foghorn
Catcher's
Leghorn.
going to hate this one.
I think Foghorn Leghorn and the dog,
Yeah.
But and I wanted the backing of the resolution being passed by the state association in doing that. And resolutions are great as long as there's something planned for that resolution after it's passed. And
Which you kind of put into the resolution,
yeah,
an action to be taken.
yeah. And
What was that action?
well, the point of it was basically just calling on the state legislature to pass the abolition bill, the governor to sign the abolition bill and execute it, and the attorney general to defend it.
And that the denomination was going to send letters requesting this.
Yes, and Mike did. He sent it to the governor, I think more than once actually.
I think so.
So yeah, Mike's done awesome with that, and so imagine my surprise about 2 weeks after week or two after the state meeting, when I get this Facebook message from this guy that I've never met named Kelly, going, "Are you the guy that wrote that abolition?"
That's a really good impersonation of him.
Yeah,
That's really good.
and I thought to myself, I don't know who this is.
It's imitating the way I text.
Who are you, and why do you want to know?
Just punk.
That's my.
Calling you in regards to your
Fixing to
extended
get
car
Molotov's
warranty.
cocktail for writing that thing.
Well, and like I say, it's kind of funny. That's
So no one else contacted you after that?
you and I ended up talking at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it
I
was
immediately knew that was a big deal when I saw that.
yeah, and I remember messaging you after I'd talked to you some.
Yeah.
And I said, because we had this little chat group going, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
"You got any objection if I add Sam into this chat group?"
I was like, well, I guess
He
not.
is historical premillennial. So
I guess he is the only other guy who
He hasn't-
understands true biblical eschatology.
even though he hasn't come to my church yet.
But that is how the Free Will Baptist Abolitionist Society was born.
All right, so I got a question for you. Do you know of any other truly abolitionist resolution that has been passed before that by any Christian denomination in the United States?
Zero.
So, and I know that later in that same year,
Are you getting that, Southern Baptist?
yeah, Southern Baptist.
The answer to that
boys.
question was
Just
no.
Might learn something. All right,
Anabaptists were the first Baptists. Remember that.
That's right.
And once again, we love our Southern Baptist brothers,
That's
right?
right.
Yes.
Hey,
We're
man.
glad to
Gotta
have
love them right into true theology.
glad to have them joining in the.
This table will feature some Southern Baptists.
Yeah, we'll
before
have some
too long.
Southern Baptist just off camera bringing us coffee.
In the-
No,
at the kiddie table.
no, but so actually later that same year, the Oklahoma Baptists as though there's no other Baptists in Oklahoma. that really means Oklahoma Southern Baptists. They passed a resolution that had abolitionist language inside of it. And I'm not sure who was it Bill Askell who was responsible for changing the language
Yes, I believe
of
so.
a resolution that was being put forth by Blake Gideon. But I believe Askell somehow got hold of the end of that thing and did a whammy on the end of it and somehow put all this abolitionist language into the very ending of Blake Gideon's resolution, turning theirs into a
Right.
not too shabby abolitionist resolution, but we were there first.
That's right.
Right? But Oklahoma Baptists in general were ahead of everybody else. So,
Well, I will say this. Since then, the Free Will Baptists in Arkansas
Right.
have done one, and I think one of the other state Southern Baptist groups, I think,
okay,
did one.
I remember someone I think they were contacting me about, hey, that resolution, and they wanted to borrow the language, and I think I sent them your way.
There was I got contacted by some of the Free Will Baptists that were involved in the Arkansas one resolution, but I also the ones that you sent me actually were from Missouri, and I think they were Southern Baptists.
Okay.
Um,
I think they did something with that. I never did check
yeah, I
back
think
up
there
on it.
was there's another. I don't know if it was them or not, but I think there's another Southern Baptist. Dusty,
Oh, I think they ran
Dusty
into
or
some
Brett,
opposition.
one of you guys.
I think the
when you're on
Missouri
here, you can
guys
tell us
ran
about
into
that.
opposition.
Did they?
Yeah.
And for
They're
those
still fighting it.
And for those of you out there that are wondering what is the point for passing resolutions in our associations, and even maybe some Free Will Baptists out there, we got to understand in the Free Will Baptist, from a historical aspect, the Northern Baptists who were abolitionists, who were adamantly opposed to slavery, it started in one association where they passed an anti-slavery, an abolition.
Not a state association, right?
No, it was not
Just
a state,
a local
association.
association is where that started.
Right. It started there, and it began to spread from association to association to association. And these were born-again Christians. These were pastors, ministers, laymen, deacons who were serious about what true evil was and how it is our call to stand up against it.
And that was considered fanatical at the time.
That was considered fanatical. And so,
So were we.
yeah, exactly.
Actually, I do want to say this though. When that resolution came to our state meeting, there was no debate, no questions, a unanimous voice vote.
That's right.
It was 100% accepted. I kind of wonder if there's not a few people that might have been there that said aye to that might be regretting that now because we've stirred the pot some.
They may
but-
not have understood what they were dealing with.
May not have, but that's the point with any of
That's
these
their problem.
resolutions, and I think this is where Sam was heading to, is it spreads the message, but more importantly is it spreads the movement. I jokingly said what I said about the Southern Baptists. We kid each other.
Yeah.
Brett and Dusty and Bill and all the Southern Baptist guys that are involved in what we're doing in Oklahoma.
Fantastic guys.
Awesome
Love
brothers
those
in
guys.
Christ, and we may have differing beliefs on some doctrines, but man, when it comes to the sanctity of life, we agree
Right.
100%.
Yeah, oddly enough, I feel a greater kinship with just the abolitionist pastors. There's the Presbyterian Church down in Norman, all the Southern Baptist friends we all have now. In a weird way, I almost feel a stronger bond with guys through the abolition than I even do denominationally,
Right.
because it's like something that's so emotional.
Right.
And you have such a kindred spirit with people when they're like, they get it.
Yeah.
They get that
Right.
we've got to behave like babies are actually dying.
Right.
And so that's a deep theological harmony
Right.
there. That's very important. Yeah, human life should be something that should
It should
bond
be.
us.
That's right.
Well, I'll tell you how that was connected with me. Long story short, I was watching all the crazies, free the states, all that stuff, And all the time, this guy, Russell Hunter, looked so familiar to me. And I would wrestle with this, and I was like, I was kind of a hybrid for a little bit. Like, I immediately saw the logic of seeking utter immediate abolition of abortion. I mean, why would someone not immediately see that that's a good thing? But I was still kind of this hodgepodge thing where I thought I was smarter than everybody else, and I was like, well, I can have the best of both worlds. And it's kind of like you were saying, when this doesn't work, we'll see if this one works. And I didn't fully understand until later when I was seeing that the pro-life laws were utterly ineffective and they're being used as tools to stop abolition. And then I started seeing that all the pro-life groups, not pro-lifers, but the pro-life system was actually kind of declaring war on abolitionism.
Right. Yeah, and we want to make that clear. We're not talking, when we say the pro-life movement, we're not talking about the average pro-lifer. We're talking about the leaders in the movement and the politicians that are trying to keep people in the dark about what they're doing and just not, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So,
like when I saw Russell Hunter trying to plead with Tony Lowinger, very calmly, he was trying to walk through very systematically, patiently, compassionately with Tony Lowinger.
It did not matter to Tony.
Tony Lowinger is supposed to be a champion for the unborn. There was a coldness in his eyes. He did not care.
Yeah. This is a disgusting video. Right. Yeah. But anyway, and now I realize now why Russell looked so familiar to me. It turned out that I probably taught him in maybe a Sunday school class, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, it turned out.
See, Sunday school matters.
And Sunday school does
Sunday
matter.
School matters.
I don't think that actually I had taught on abortion down there.
Good.
I don't know if he was in that class, but I wasn't teaching abolitionism. That was, he kind of came up with
For the sake of the legend.
For the legend, I can embellish.
You probably did teach.
Seeds.
You planted seeds in Russell Hunter's life.
I planted seeds in Russell's life. But anyway, it did turn out later that I had possibly taught some Sunday school classes for him or something like that. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. That can go nowhere. So, but what happened was I was watching these guys, and I just loved the idea. The thought had come across my mind for years. Oh, wouldn't it be great? Why do we even have to follow the Supreme Court?
Right.
But I just thought that was a crazy idea because I'm the only person thinking it. So I never actually said that out loud. People think I'm nuts.
How dare you defy?
Apparently, there's some guys who decided to start saying
Caesar.
that out loud because you don't think anyone else. Yeah. I mean, what good does it do to say something like that? Right. Because you're so far from anyone, any group of people trying to do that. But then suddenly discover that there's a group of guys who are actually motivated and the movement's growing, and you're like,
and they never sleep.
Wow. Yeah, and they never sleep.
They never sleep.
Except for in the daytime. Anyway, they know who we're talking about. Sam.
They're
James,
jaywalkers.
Russell. Anyway, so they're what? What'd you say? They're daywalkers? Daywalkers? You like Blade?
I don't know. Just move on.
All right. So anyway, what happens is I'm watching these guys, and I was asked to speak at our local association. So we're all Free Will Baptist ministers, and I was asked to speak, and I spoke on I believe it was the sheep and the goats, and I relayed that to what you did unto the least of these and stuff like that, and I related that to abortion, and that I remember he's passed away now a few months ago, was Thomas Marbury was there. And Thomas Marbury, to me, never seemed like he was super demonstrative. And when I started speaking about, abortion, all of a sudden Marbury starts coming, and he starts almost being slightly Pentecostal. And so, and I start noticing Marbury's really feeling this message, man. And then I'm noticing, like, Mike Wade is really feeling this. And I'm like, hey, these are guys I respect,
Right.
I'm glad they're really liking what I'm saying here. And so by then, I'm already kind of almost deep into abolitionist thought. And then the state meeting comes up a little while after that. And I guess the day before they're going to vote on the resolution, if I remember right, I believe Marbury calls me and says, hey, after you left, we nominated for you to be on that resolution board. I guess, to see whether or not we could let your stuff through or not. Well, I didn't know nothing about this, but I believe, and Marbury's not here to confirm this anymore. He passed away a few months ago. But Marbury was pressing me hard. And I was like, no, man, that's not my kind of thing. I'm not into all this denominational stuff. I don't like being on these boards. And he's like, no, you need to be on this. This is important. You need to be on it. He's really pressing me hard. I'm like, what's the big deal? Well, I'm not realizing that I believe what Marbury was trying to do was to ensure that it was a resolution-friendly board to your resolution. And he knew that I would be very friendly towards your resolution. Right. But he never mentioned it to me. Yeah. But he pressed me so hard. I'm like, I cannot. I am not free tomorrow. I have plans. And so I wasn't there. And then I'm reading on Facebook someone with connected to like Free the States. You know what? It may have been Kenny Bob.
Yeah,
Kenny Bob Tapp.
He published it.
Kenny Bob. Kenny Bob Tapp. If you're watching this, he posted like an article.
Love you,
talking
Kenny
about
Bob.
The Free Will Baptists just passed this abolitionist resolution. I was like, oh, hey, I'm the abolitionist. Everybody knows I'm the abolitionist.
You had your chance.
How's that happen without me knowing about it? Is there some other abolitionist? Well, obviously there's got to be another abolitionist. And
you had plans.
And so I started trying to find out. Yeah, I was doing. They choked my brain. But anyway, I called Mike Wade. I said, Mike, what's the deal? I'm seeing about this resolution that was passed. And he goes, oh yeah, that was great, man. Where
were you?
It was. Yeah, I didn't say that I wasn't there. I was sleeping in. And so he goes, yeah, man, that was written up by Tim Gillespie. I'm like, no, I don't know Tim Gillespie. He's like, yeah, he wrote it up and I presented it and nobody was against it. It's great, man. It's great. Went fine. I'm just like, oh, Mike, this is a big deal. I read that. That's like abolition, that right. Resolution. And so then I got hold of you and turns out there's this guy floating around up there in Stroud who is like writing resolutions for his denomination, moving them towards abolitionism and stuff like that. And I was just blown away by that. And somehow, how did we wind up here?
Here? At this very moment?
I think you were like trying to make some kind of evil plans, and then you said, hey, we need to include him, and hey, he's historic pre-mill, yes, let's let him in.
Well, he's dispensationalist.
Actually, I
oh, you're Dispy?
He's a pain.
That's okay, man. I can get down with a little Dispy.
I go back and forth between the two.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah,
hey, the smartest Bible scholar I know, it's Mr. Ledbetter. He's Dispy.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Hey, we're still pre-mill, brother.
That's right.
That's right.
So.
He left me hanging.
But anyway,
what my daughter does is this.
Yeah. I think that's what Stallone does.
Yeah, it does. Well. It's awkward too.
But anyway, that's about it. For I think shortly after that, I think a little while after that would be the first. The first big Abolition Day, right?
Right.
And you couldn't be there.
Yeah,
that's how we pulled you in.
Yes,
that's how we pulled you in
because you
couldn't be there.
You were going to read your resolution.
Yeah,
but you had some health issues.
Yeah, I'd been in the hospital.
Yeah, your leg got hurt.
Well, because of HIPAA, I wasn't going to say exactly. Just joking. But anyway, so I think it was you asked me if I'd read the resolution.
I asked you.
You asked me. Sorry.
My wife told me get hold of Sam Ketcher.
Oh, tell her thank you.
I will. She said get hold of Sam.
Oh wow.
I think Didn't we have you in the? We'd been talking.
Yeah,
the
we've
three
been
of
talking.
us.
Oh, yeah, we
at
had.
that point,
Yeah.
but probably not. But maybe 2 or 3 months.
And
I
what's
remember.
funny is the announcer, when they were, or somebody announced, now here is Tim Gillespie going to read.
Yeah, I remember.
And I didn't correct him. I literally stood there as Tim Gillespie.
You stood in his stead.
Yes, I was your stunt double.
Ah, there you go. Did you wear a hat at least?
No.
No.
But,
Yeah, I remember that. It was my wife. She said, "Get that guy Sam." And I go, "Yeah,
she is a smart woman.
She is.
Saint.
She should be.
Usually."
She's not going to watch this, is she? So you don't
She
have to
doesn't
worry.
watch anything that I'm on. No.
Does she volunteer for the nursery on Sunday mornings?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, until I made her stop. So she was volunteering for the nursery with no kids.
Just in case one shows up.
Just in case.
Gotta have the animal crackers ready.
Well, she's technically pregnant, so she's
Oh,
back
okay.
there with a kid.
That's
Turning the volume on the speaker down. Get a little piece.
little pastor's wife humor there.
Taking a nap.
No, she's not sleeping. She's probably watching VeggieTales.
Oh, I'm crying. For those of you watching from home, I'm crying.
Well, I tell you what, we're getting close to our time limit here, so
Yeah.
we're gonna start wrapping up. But we'll probably talk a lot more about some of the other aspects of this as we go along. But we'll be releasing a podcast about every 2 weeks, or twice a month, I should say. So stay with us and maybe add some more cameras and some more set and maybe have some guests and so forth. So we're going to see where it goes from here. But we do want to mention
That's right.
the conference, Free Will Baptist Abolition Conference, on the 17th, which this is going to be released on the 12th, right?
Yep.
So it would be
Release on 12th,
this coming Saturday when you're
which
watching
is
this.
Sam's birthday.
It is.
That's right.
April 12th.
Happy birthday, Sam.
My birthday.
Happy birthday.
Are you how old?
I will be. I don't
That's
know.
pretty old.
It's
Pup.
44
He's a pup.
or 45.
45.
My wife keeps me. She keeps that
I
total
thought you were
going.
like 35.
I'll be 45. Yeah, I'm 40. I don't know how old. I'll do the math later. But yeah, my birthday is April 12th. If you want to send any, gifts, whatever you want.
We don't do that.
Money is preferred.
Sonic gift cards, I'll take those.
Well, anyway, so happy birthday on the 12th to Sam. But
Thank you very
also,
much.
On the 17th, the Abolitionist Conference at Randall University from 1 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Free dinner, pulled pork sandwiches.
that's
I think is what
right.
we're having.
Thank you, James Benedict.
Yes, James
Thank you
Benedict,
very
Arms
much.
Compassion, for taking care of that for us.
Another champion for the unborn.
That's right.
That's right. Speakers, Mike Wade will be giving an introduction.
Mhm.
We've got C.R. Calley, who's the author of the Doctrine of Balaam.
Get that book if you haven't gotten it
yes,
yet, Doctrine
yes.
of Balaam.
Yes, definitely get that book. We've got Russell Hunter from Free the States, Joseph Silk from Liberty Rising.
That's right. Liberty Rising.
Liberty,
not
not-
Proclaim Liberty Rising.
Yeah, there you go. And Naomi Jones, who is a Free Will Baptist from up around Barnsdall. She does a lot of work at the clinic. She's going to talk about clinic ministry.
Right. Her and her sister both.
Yep. And then the three of us, Kelly's going to be emceeing, and Sam and I will speak. Sam's going to talk about
Sweet.
Free Will Baptist abolitionist history.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to
That's
that.
yeah. And I'm going to talk about Romans 13 and who the governing authority in this country actually is.
right.
Spoiler.
It's
it
like
is-
we the something.
Yes.
You just spoiled it.
Yeah. Now you spoiled
Spoiler.
You spoiled my spoiler. But anyway,
All right.
17th, 1 to 7:30. Plan on being with us if you have any questions about it.
And all are
You'll
welcome.
get
You
your
don't have
answer.
to be Free Will Baptist. All are welcome.
That's right.
Where's that going to be?
Randall University.
Randall University.
Used to be Hillsdale.
Yes.
All you
more.
old timers know it as Hillsdale.
So we have no idea yet what next week's or the next podcast topic is going to be. We will probably put out a promo or something maybe.
Yeah.
So,
We'll figure it out. Lord will let us know.
yep. So Anyway, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Come back.
Stay salty, Oklahoma.
That's right.